This is just a test of the webinar. Okay. Welcome to this webinar hosted by the International Renewable Energy Agency. My name is Saliha Lockwood and I'm managing the IRENA Abu Dhabi Fund for Development Project Facility. And I see there are about 24 attendees on the webinar right now. I will be presenting this webinar guidance for applicants in the fourth cycle for around 15 minutes, which will be followed by a Q&A session. If you have any questions at any time during this presentation, please type them into the chat box and we will address these immediately after the presentation ends. You may also raise your hand in the system if you wish to ask a question, and we will unmute you after the presentation ends. We will also ask you if you could mention the organization when you are posing your question so we can share this with the other listeners. So those are the instructions for the webinar, and thank you so much for joining. I'll start off with the content. Just as a background, IRENA is an intergovernmental organization and it's tasked with scaling up renewable energy globally. The Abu Dhabi Fund for Development that we are collaborating with is a development fund focused on providing funding to projects in developing countries. And we now have a collaboration which is called the IRENA ADFD project facility, which we've been implementing for 3 years now, through which IRENA selects and recommends renewable energy projects for funding to the ADFD. I'm moving on to slide 2 now, so please give me a moment. There's just a little bit of a technical difficulty to move to the next slide. Okay, we're on the second slide, and here I'm talking about what the objective of the webinar is. And here we're going to clarify first in this webinar the type of projects selected in the previous cycles in the IRENA ADFD project facility, and for quickness and in terms of simplicity, I'll be referring to the project facility as the facility for the rest of the webinar. And we'll also give you an idea of the result of the selection process by clarifying the type of projects that have been selected. We will then go through the selection criteria, process and timeline and any specific changes from previous cycles. And then we'll also explain the new link with the IRENA Sustainable Energy Marketplace, which could actually assist you to try to seek co-funding or funding for feasibility studies. Also, later on in the presentation, we will also go through the application form and explain what the immediate and next steps in the process are. I'd like to clarify that this webinar is for applicants seeking funding for mainly government-driven projects, and also for renewable energy experts that wish to get involved in being experts on our panel of experts, and potential co-funders who wish to co-fund projects or to have a similar facility to the IRENA ADFD project facility. And we see several registrants on this webinar who are from multilateral development funds, but also from ministries, the private sector and government agencies. I'm now moving to the next slide, which is slide 3, in which there's a rundown of the projects that were selected in the first and second cycle to give you an idea of the type of projects that result in the process that needs to be followed through in the facility. So the size of projects here have varied from 1 megawatt to 15 megawatt, and they cover various technologies from small hydro to wind energy to hybrid solar, PV diesel mini-grids, and geothermal projects. And the selected projects also have potentially significant development benefits and also improve energy access and energy security. Now, the results of the third cycle will be publicly announced in January 2016. So at the moment, we are just giving you the results for the first and second cycle to give you an idea of the type of projects selected in previous cycles. To be eligible, projects must be in IRENA member signatories or states and accession countries, which is listed on our website, and they also need to be countries which are on the OECD DAC list of ODA recipients. We actually have an eligible country list which is provided on the website. I'm now on slide 4, in which you have a rundown of the type of funding provided by the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development. Every cycle, around 50 million is provided in total, and each project needs to provide a government guarantee letter. Those are that's the overall requirement, and the amount of loans is 5 to 15 million to cover up to 50% of the project costs. So that means the minimum size of a project needs to be $10 million, and there is no upper limit on the size of the total project because of this up to 50% requirement. So it depends on how much co-financing you would be able to engage. So as you'll see in the first and second cycle, some projects have got 15 million for a much larger project, which could actually be up to $70 million in total. Interest rates are from 1 to 2%, depending on where the country in which you're operating your project lies on the OECD DAC list. So if you're in the low income category, you would benefit from a 1% rate, and in the middle income with a 2% rate. And in both cases, this is for a 20-year loan period, including a 5-year grace period. Again, please note the downloadable eligible country list that I mentioned to you in previously. That has this rundown of which rate you would get depending on which column you lie in terms of country, so low income or middle income. And I'm now moving on to provide you with an example of a project that was selected in the first cycle, and this is in slide 5, which is the Mali Solar PV Diesel Mini-Grid project. There are 3 examples in this presentation which you can look at in your leisure. Here I am trying to just give you one example so you have a feel. The example was put forward, this particular project was put forward by AMADER, the Rural Electrification Agency in Mali, and they were able to provide a government guarantee and an economic feasibility study. The project also had strong development benefits and was able to try to obtain co-financing and is moving ahead based on those main pillars. The other 2 projects that you'll see have been put forward by government. Projects through the facility tend to be supported by government because of the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development requirement for a government guarantee. So please do look at the other 2 examples at your leisure. So now I'm on slide 8, which is on development impacts. This looks at the project development impacts that IRENA has put forward as example indicators for the respective projects, and applicants can choose to amend, add others which are of more relevance to their project. We ask about these development indicators in the selection process, but also post-selection to help to monitor the achievement of these development targets. And that's why we've mentioned this here, so you have this clearly before you as areas of interest for IRENA to monitor as the project goes forward. We're now on the slide in which it mentions there's mandatory eligibility self-check. Here, this is from our website, and in this cycle we decided to add this because we have a new platform called the Sustainable Energy Marketplace, which is covering all African countries. Here on this part of the website, you can check whether your project is in an eligible country. You'll find through this process of checking on the website that the project could be eligible for the facility only, because it may be in countries which are not in Africa, for instance. You could find that your project is only eligible for the Sustainable Energy Marketplace because you might be asking for less than $5 million in loans for your requested finance, or more than 15 million, and it's in an African country. Or it could be eligible for both the facility or the Sustainable Energy Marketplace. And if it's eligible for both, you can apply to the IRENA ADFD project facility, and you can click into the Excel form that I'll be showing you later in the presentation to choose to list on the Sustainable Energy Marketplace. And our colleagues in IRENA who are managing the marketplace will receive an automated email with your Excel form attachment to add to their marketplace as well. Again, the marketplace is another avenue for you to be able to get co-funding or funding for feasibility studies. At the moment, it only covers African countries, but there's a plan to expand to Latin America and Caribbean later. I'm now on to the next slide, which is named the project selection cycle, in which it gives you the deadlines and process right from the beginning to the end, when you will find that you will be notified in December 2016 whether the project has been selected or not by the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development. So at the moment we're at this initial stage, at the executive project summary application stage, where you have approximately 90 days to submit your executive project summary by 15th February 2016. And then halfway through the process in May, you will find out whether you've been shortlisted, and you'll be asked to submit a full proposal. And I'll provide you further details on that in a moment. Evaluation criteria is on our next slide, where we look at what the requirements are. So at this executive project summary stage, we are asking for overall technical and commercial plans and potential socioeconomic and environmental benefits of the project. Here, the applicant needs to provide an overall summary of the technical design of the project, the revenue model, the stakeholder engagement, and to ensure the success of the project, and if there's any innovative aspects, whether the project is potentially replicable or scalable and will improve energy access and energy security. And the experts will review these aspects. The committee will select projects based on geographic spread, diversity of technologies, and alignment with government priorities. It's only at the second stage, at the full project proposal stage, where you're really required to submit a full feasibility study. And here there's further details provided by our colleagues, together with our colleagues at the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development, that the feasibility study needs to be established by methods such as cost-benefit analysis, economic internal rate of return, net present value, and sensitivity analysis. And the review would also cover the financing plan, the expected cash flow, and the evaluation of technical and social data. Those are aspects that the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development would like to see in the full feasibility study provided at the second stage of consideration. The reason we're providing you with this information is that you know then upfront what all the requirements are at various stages of the selection process. We're on the next slide, where I am clarifying what the new aspects are in this fourth cycle, which are different from the previous cycles. One is the link to the Sustainable Energy Marketplace. As I've mentioned earlier, this particular link is such that you would be able to register on the Sustainable Energy Marketplace to find other sources of funding for feasibility studies or co-funding. And there are also other initiatives on the Sustainable Energy Marketplace that may assist you in this regard, examples of which are mentioned here on this slide, such as our partners from the Energy and Environment Programme and Power Africa. The other aspect is how experts evaluate and all are provided to you up front. I'll be explaining that to you in the forms shortly. And also, all the panel of expert comments will be provided to applicants so that at the second stage, so this will help to improve applications and projects. So this is another aspect which was not the case in previous cycles. Previous aspects were that the African Development Bank, CEFA, and I see that some of our colleagues are even on this call from CEFA, also listed on our website, and UNDP Global Environment Facility colleagues provided their contact details, and as well as the Islamic Development Bank, to contact them for co-funding for projects that are coming through this process. We also have IRENA's Project Navigator, which is a tool for project development to assist projects to develop their projects further. And again, we also have our reference to the Global Atlas to assist applicants in resource assessment where the data is available in Global Atlas. And now we come quickly to the website interface. And here, as I mentioned, I would explain to you the application process. First, you register as a project coordinator, and that's the registration form on the website. It's very easy to fill in, and then you get your login details. When you get your login details, you'll be able to download a full cycle form. And there, when you open the Excel form, you only need to fill out the first two tabs. That's the project owner information tab and the executive project summary tab. So the lower part of the project owner information tab has this choice of choosing to list in the Sustainable Energy Marketplace, which is what we were referring to earlier. The executive project summaries tab has general information asked of you of the project name, project country, etc. And then later on in the application, we ask you about the project summary, the project objectives. And on the right of that, in this column G, 117, and further down, you will see exactly how the experts evaluate your project. What are the statements they are looking to strongly agree or disagree on with regard to your project? So examples here are, is the technology used applicable and suitable for the location and market? They will be required by IRENA to indicate whether they strongly agree or disagree with that statement, and then to justify that agreement. And then overall for each section, they will be asked, that's the technical, commercial, and socioeconomic section, they'll be asked to provide a score on whether the project is technically feasible and explain the main strengths and weaknesses of the project from those three main perspectives. Finally, we have regional webinars for applicants. This is one where we've tried to specify the timing for Africa, and we will have one which is for French speakers, Francophone countries in Africa on the 16th of December at the same time. And we'll also schedule webinars in January for other regions. And we mentioned ADSW here, that's the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week. We will also have events during that week, that's from the 15th of December for that week starting the 15th of December, in which we will have a workshop to try to explain the requirements for the fourth cycle further. And now I'd like to take the questions that have been posed during the webinar. Hello. Thank you for your questions. I've noted there are about 4 questions we have right now. The first is from Lucy Mukiri in Kenya from a geothermal development company. Thank you so much for your question. The question is, can the application be submitted for more than one project? Yes, you can submit more than one Excel form to the IRENA ADFD project facility. On the hello? Yes, and also you can on the IRENA Sustainable Energy Marketplace, you would also be eligible to register there, and you can submit more than one project there. That's why the format, the structure, what we try to do is make sure that we coordinate with the different areas of our work. We coordinated this time on the facility so that the new Excel form is in line with what my colleagues are trying to develop in the Sustainable Energy Marketplace. So that's why there is this structure of project owner information and then the project itself. So you'll find that in the Sustainable Energy Marketplace, if you want to register there, you put in your project owner information and then you can add as many projects as you like. In the facility, you can register and then you can add as many projects as well, upload several Excel forms. Note also, together with the Excel forms, at the executive project summary level, we would ask for government guarantee letters to be provided as soon as possible. That would have to be submitted as an additional attachment. Also, if you have any other studies like environmental and socioeconomic studies, you can submit them at the summary stage, even the feasibility study. We do ask for these studies at the full proposal stage because those studies are very necessary for further consideration of the projects, but if you already have them at the executive project summary stage, please do submit them as additional documentation that can also be used as well for analysis by the experts at the full proposal stage. There's a question from another registrant here. May the project proposer be from a different country, for instance, a project in an African country? I understand that the sound is not so good, so I'll repeat the question. May the project proponent be from a different country, for instance, a European country, and lead a project in an African country? This is a question posed by one of the registrants. In the past, we have had projects submitted in different African countries by European project developers. Yes, they can be submitted. The requirement by the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development for a government guarantee letter means that it's difficult for them to get further, to get the government guarantee in many countries. So that seems to be the main stumbling block in that, in the process. But certainly based on our selection process and what is allowed in our process, that is perfectly appropriate as long as you're able to work with government and get government support because you need to have a government guarantee letter. The next question we have is from Karim Magherbi. Thank you very much. Can a portfolio of projects be eligible, i.e. the same project in several countries as part of a regional development program? Will the cap of $15 million be applicable to the overall portfolio, or is it applicable to each project of the portfolio? This is a very interesting question. We have posed this particular question in terms of bundling of projects to the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development, particularly because smaller projects, less than 5 million, wanted to also make avail of this long-term concessional debt. And we understand from the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development that, that bundled projects are something that they would accept. So yes, when you're saying a portfolio of projects, if you're able to structure this such that it would be one project proponent, it can be more than one project proponent, but one in which the government will be able to provide a government guarantee for that full portfolio, then that's possible, and we could say that's a set of, we could put that forward as a set of bundled projects. I hope that answers your question, Mr. Karim Magherbi. Okay, thank you very much. We have another very interesting question. Thank you, Mr. Babakar Sar. You have posed a question saying, for the sustainable energy marketplace, do we have the same deadlines and the same requirements, i.e. the government guarantee letter? Actually, for the sustainable energy marketplace, we do not. The sustainable energy marketplace is more a platform for project proponents to register their projects, and it is actually a platform to really assist many more in the private sector to get funding. So there's no government guarantee requirement to register on the platform. However, there are various funds on the platform who do not require a government guarantee to get interested in the projects which are listed on the platform. But then there are also funds there, like the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development, who, if you're registering on the Sustainable Energy Marketplace and they see your project through that, they may actually require a government guarantee. So each of the funders that are listed on the Sustainable Energy Marketplace have their own respective requirements. Because many of them are supporting private sector projects, at the moment there's no requirement for a government guarantee. The next question that we have is from Laurent Sam. Oh yes, this is in the a sustainable energy marketplace field in the executive project summary. What is the difference between confidential and public? What information becomes public if I choose public? It's the project owner information. Let me try to show you online, if I can open my website online. If you go into opening your fourth cycle form, can you see it? You open out the fourth cycle form, and I'll just show you what the form looks like and what the question posed is here. So we go into the form itself. I hope you can all see it. I understand it's not visible. Let me open it now. Can you see it now? Yes. So the question posed now is, on the project owner information, we have optionally confidential information. This section of information will be visible to all users on the platform if you choose to list on the platform. And if not, so here the information on the contact details of the project coordinator is what this section is talking about, so their phone number, etc. But this is only for the sustainable energy marketplace. So because this form is to fill in your details for the facility, we will not be making this information public when it's coming to the facility, but only if you're registering to the marketplace, which is the platform, would that be something to be concerned about, and you might want to indicate that you want to keep it confidential. But if you're just applying to the facility, do not worry, that's not going to be provided publicly. What's the next question? Okay, we have a question from Luis Ribeiro saying, what governmental level do we require? Do we require local or regional government? So I understand you're asking about what level of application. Does it need to be from the Ministry of Energy that submit, or local or regional government? It can be from your side, it can be any level. For instance, we can give you specific examples from the second cycle. We have projects that were submitted by regional development agencies and very much supported by the central government because they were able to obtain a central government guarantee from the Ministry of, which is the International Borrowing Affairs entity of the country, normally the Ministry of Finance. There is another question from Lucy Mercury. Thank you so much. Coming back to you again on, would the letter of guarantee be required for government companies at the first stage, which is at the executive project summary stage? Is there a format for the letter? What we do is we ask for, and again I'm going to share with you the screen here and I hope you can see it, we have the how to apply part of the website. So you're asking whether the letter needs to be provided at the first stage. We would like it to be provided as soon as possible, but what we do realize is that for each project there's a different situation, and in each country there's a different situation on obtaining the letter, the government guarantee letter. So we leave it up to around August of each year to give time to the applicants to provide it. But we also make it very clear to applicants that please don't spend time on spending money on full feasibility studies on the promise that you're going to get funding from the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development without knowing for sure that you would be able to get it. The point is that we don't want to also make sure that you're not going down a route which then at the end of it you're not able to make avail of this funding. And the two templates are a template for government entities and a template for non-government entities, which I'm indicating to you here. You can open those out and they open into Word forms. I hope you can hear me. They're open to Word forms. Okay, we have a question from Sijabuli Nedovo. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce that name correctly. It's stated that the loan provided by ADFD must be guaranteed by the government of the country where the project is located. Does it mean that the project must be supported by a government guarantee? What does it mean for the government to provide a guarantee for the loan? Is the loan then considered as a sovereign loan? This is a loan provided by the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development to the respective project, and it is considered a sovereign loan, but a private entity can put the project forward, and you'll see the government guarantee letter template provides you with the mechanics for that there's a loan agreement signed with the government, but also with the entity that's implementing the project. When the loans are actually dispersed, they don't actually go directly to the government, they go to the actual implementation of the activity. So there would be an invoice for the contractual arrangement made to implement the project. The funds provided by the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development are for those projects that have done their feasibility study work by the second stage of the process, and they are ready to get funding to scale up the project and to get to, normally it's at the power plant stage of a project or at obtaining the equipment stage. So post-feasibility. Thank you. We also have another question, Kingsley Jackson. Thank you so much, from Nigeria. And from the Gaztech Group in Nigeria. This is a private sector company, and you're asking if the private sector company can partner with the Ministry of Energy, like a public-private partnership or a special purpose vehicle, to be able to propose a project for development to IRENA ADFD, since the government guarantee is critical. We do know that in the case of Mali, a rural electrification agency was able to put forward a public-private partnership approach together with a private entity, Access, and also an NGO, Mali Folk Center. And that public-private partnership was able to obtain a government guarantee. So there are examples of such structures and such approaches, but I understand in each country it's up to the government, the respective government, as to what the situation is there in terms of whether they provide a government guarantee to private entities or not. And even in a public-private partnership context. But certainly it is important to have government strongly on board in most of the countries that are submitting, because that's the best way to try to obtain a government guarantee. So that's the requirement of the IRENA ADFD project facility, and as this webinar is being focused for African countries, you also now have an additional alternative to register your projects on the Sustainable Energy Marketplace that my colleague Alexi is managing, and there you can try to use that as a platform to engage possibly other funds, technology providers, and other parts, the stakeholders in the marketplace for renewable energy. There's a question from Laurent Sam, another second question. Do I need to finalize the other 50% funding before I can apply for funding from the IRENA ADFD fund? At the executive project summary stage, it is okay that you are continuing to try to plan that co-financing, but certainly at the second stage, when you're putting forward your feasibility study, the co-funding partners there need to be a little bit more of concrete plans at that second stage. Certainly by May you would know whether you're shortlisted, so that would hopefully assist you in that regard. Thank you very much. There's another question by Mr. Andalova, again apologies for my mispronunciation, regarding the accessibility indicator. How is it defined for grid-connected projects? And as mentioned, there's a variation of different projects selected through our process, and there are different indicators. Now, every single project has their own particular improvements to access to energy and to providing different solutions to the communities. So, for instance, in case of one of the projects in the first and second cycle, it's a grid-connected project, but what it's doing is improving reliability of electricity provision into the grid, and reducing outages. So it's not. So in terms of your accessibility indicator, it really depends on the type of project you have. The reliability aspect may be more important, and that's where you might wish to our advice is to try to put forward what are the main aspects of your project. So they can be on-grid projects, off-grid projects. So when we're saying improving energy access, that's one of the components. There are various other components considered as well. I hope that answers your question. Okay, great. We have a question from Brent Barber about where you can find the list of co-funders. So I will again show you my screen. If you go onto the funding page, I hope you can see it. And if you click onto the funding page and you go further down, you'll see on the right the three funds that we were mentioning. And again, this is for we would advise shortlisted projects to contact those co-funders, and they have listed kindly their exact contact details. But again, if you would like to find out a bit more about co-funding potential, please do write to me directly. My direct email address is at the end of the webinar. Okay, great. We also have another follow-on question from Brent Barber, which is it possible to have a copy of one of the past projects' successes? I mean, for instance, what does a good feasibility study look like? Brent Barber is trying to operate projects in Zimbabwe, and what I would like to say is that there's a confidentiality around the projects proposed in previous cycles. Nevertheless, what we tried to do this time is to provide a bit more advice on what needs to be in the feasibility study. So if you go into how it works page, at the end of the evaluation considerations table, as I was presenting during the presentation, what the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development is really looking at least that you have a proper way of establishing the economic feasibility of the project. But I think that's a good idea to try to provide you with what a good feasibility study looks like. But again, we will try to see how we can go around the confidentiality aspect, because I think the more real it is, the better, rather than just giving you a template, if we are able to give you a feasibility study of a specific project. So we will look into that and get back to you and update the website accordingly. But again, we have provided a bit more of an understanding of what the evaluation considerations are at the two stages. So back to the Excel form, you'll also see exactly what the project, the experts are looking at when you fill in your forms. The project summary from line 117, you'll see here on the right-hand side the technical and economic, commercial and socioeconomic considerations of the experts. So this is what you need to fill in at this stage, but at the full project proposal stage, we even provide you with what is being considered by the experts at this stage. And here, a lot of what needs to be in the economic feasibility study is provided here as well in the considerations. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what needs to be there to be able to answer these, to be able to make sure that you are meeting the criteria that the experts will be looking at. And we also have a question from Kazi Ahmed Farouki. Thank you so much. Where is the list of eligible countries? Again, I hope you can see my screen. I will show you on the screen where you can find this. It's in various places on the website. So if you go to About the Facility, the first tab, there's a link here saying List of Eligible Countries. If you open that, that opens into an Excel file, and then you know you're in the right place. That Excel file, can you see the Excel file? It's opened out. I think it should open out into an Excel file, and I'm just showing it to you here. Hopefully you can see it. There are two columns here. One is starting off with Afghanistan, which is indicating the 1% interest rate, and the second column is Albania with 2%. And so this file shows you the combination of countries which are IRENA member signatories and states in accession, and also countries which are on the OECD DAC list of ODA recipients. Would anyone like to raise their hand and we can unmute them and they can pose a question live? Are there any raising of hands? No. Okay. Just the other types of, oh, there is. Okay, Colin Westmoreland, we're actually unmuting you because you raised your hand. Hello? Can you hear me? Mr. Colin Westmoreland? Okay, so we can unmute. Yes, there's a question saying is Guyana eligible? And it is. It's on the eligible country list on the second column. We also have several questions where we can see how can we see other successful applicants' previous rounds, how they completed their application forms. So we can see what makes a good application. Again, that's really in line with the previous question on what's a good feasibility study. This is a good point. We'll try to see what we can do, but certainly our additional comments and transparent upfront set of considerations of the experts is what we added there to try to assist you to see what needs to be there, because basically that column G, which I showed you in the executive project summary sheet, is what the experts are going to look at to assess your projects. So the more you're familiar with exactly what their considerations are, it will help you to work backwards to what you need to do in terms of preparing the project and submitting the application form. Thank you, Andrea Watson-Jones. You raised your hand. If you could please pose your question.
Hello, good morning. This is Andrea Watson-James, President and CEO of Roraima Consulting, based in Rosedale, New York. I had two comments. First of all, in relation to the question posed earlier by someone in relation to the grid tide project. And you were correct, Ms. Lockwood, that they could emphasize the energy security aspects. But in addition to that, they could divide the total capacity of the plant by the acceptable household usage to determine the number of households and the number of persons which would benefit from that project. That would be another way to support the efficacy of that project. And secondly, I wanted to support the comments you were making in relation to the importance of the government guarantee, and that potential project owners and project developers should ensure that they get their guarantees early. My company proposed a project for cycle 2. We were actually shortlisted, but we were not able to secure the government guarantee, although we had earlier indications that we would have received that. So to ensure success, securing that guarantee is very, very important, and I would urge all potential developers to try to get that tied up as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrew Watson-James. That is really helpful, particularly to give that example on energy security. And going back to that slide, which is on different indicators, actually what we're also trying to do is to make sure that post-selection, so right now we're asking for what the applicants are potentially thinking their project is going to, how it's going to benefit in various ways. But also post-selection, we also see that there would be scope as well to continue to work on these indicators as well, and to help to refine them and to see which ones are most relevant as well. On the ground. And again, thank you also for emphasizing the importance of the government guarantee aspect. We hope with the sustainable energy marketplace, we have then another avenue to try to assist projects that are not able to obtain a government guarantee. But again, as I mentioned, the platform is only focused on Africa right now. We would be expanding it to Latin America and the Caribbean very soon. And I understand Roraima Consulting had submitted projects in that region in the previous cycle, so hopefully that will be of benefit to you going forward. So thank you very much. Also, we have one more hand up, which is Karim Maghribi, who's also posed several written questions. So please go ahead, Karim.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Yeah, actually coming back to my question regarding a portfolio approach, when we talk about grid-connected projects, then I mean, from a legal point of view, what you have is if it is supported by, if the sponsor is a private entity, you have actually several local companies that will sign, you know, the appropriate contracts like power purchase agreement, concession agreement, and whatever. So in effect, actually, you will not have. It's when we are talking about bundling the project, it's more a duplication, a replication of the same structure, and well, the same impact, and although it's, I mean, related to the energy mix of the country, but it's the duplication of the project. And so you will have, in effect, several borrowers, actually, and with several sovereign guarantees. So let's suppose that you have this a program for 3 countries, for example, and the same project in 3 countries, 3 local companies, etc. How does it work in effect? I mean, would this Abu Dhabi fund consider this as a program? It's still a program, and if it's the case, then it means basically you have 3 facilities, I believe. Then they would consider the 3 facilities as separate facilities, or and in particular for the cap of the 15 million USD, or would they say, okay, no, this is one program, and so this is 15 million USD as a maximum, and we can split that among the three projects. I mean, how does it work? Have you been into these kind of details with the Abu Dhabi fund?
Thank you very much for your question. In the previous 3 cycles, we've had projects in, just to clarify, you're also talking about in different countries as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is exactly the 3. You will have three different projects in 3 different countries. Yeah.
Yes. So when we've posed this situation to the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development, our partners on this, who are making the final selection after our project selection process, they have mentioned that, as long as there's a government guarantee for the respective parts of the project, then that's acceptable. But in a sense, that there may be, you might put forward a program and then one part of it then might not get a government guarantee. So we would have to then somehow make sure that that's clarified, obviously, through the process to the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development. But again, providing a government guarantee for such a program to meet what the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development requirements are, from the experience that we have, I think that may be quite difficult for a Ministry of Finance to do that, because they can do it for for example, a $5 million loan coming from the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development for a particular mini-grid project in Africa that the local rural electrification agency is behind, and there's been a feasibility study done, and that the project is going to have this amount of social and economic development impact, and then it's in line with government priorities. It's part of the reason that Abu Dhabi Fund for Development, our partners explained to us that they require this government priority, is they want to make sure, government guarantee, is that they want to make sure that it is a government priority project that they are supporting. In a portfolio programmatic approach, if you're able to structure it such that there is this government guarantee letter that can be provided by the respective countries, then you can submit that. But I see that there have been some challenges with that approach. There was a country in Latin America who tried to do that with 2 countries in the first cycle, and I know that there were difficulties with that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So I'm just trying to be as honest as possible.
Yeah, I mean, this is the sponsor's activity to try to get this approval, and obviously if someone try to present a portfolio approach, it means that is going to get this guarantee. If not, for sure there's no point in moving forward in such a structure. Yes.
Yeah, but please, I don't want to discourage you. It's just from the past experience, there were some challenges, but it is possible to accept that.
I'm not discouraged at all.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you very much, and I hope I've answered the question. Okay. And then we have, is grant funding applicable in the project, if any? Okay, great. So we have a question from Qazi Ahmed Farouki again, which is whether grant funding is applicable in the project, and if any grant funding is available from donors. Now, you can have any source of funding for the preparation of the project. At this stage, most of the project preparation that many projects that have been submitted is with grant funding for the feasibility studies, and also even grant funding provided for geothermal projects at the drilling stage. So there's no specific ruling out of what the co-funding is on the project by the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development. The sources of funding could be from the private sector, from government, from any source. The main requirement is this government guarantee for the loan provided by the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development. In terms of obtaining grant funding, again, the Sustainable Energy Marketplace is an avenue for you to articulate when you register what type of funding you're looking for. So if you're looking for grant funding, you can select that option. And those options are provided in the Sustainable Energy Marketplace platform. In terms of you going through the IRENA ADFD project facility and your need for grants, please do articulate that to us, and we'll try to share that with other funding partners. But of course, we can't guarantee from our side whether they would be able to provide that grant funding. Thank you for your question. We have a question about what it is, from Laurent Sam again, what is an acceptable IRR? What should I include for the economic internal rate of return? So here, the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development doesn't say that you should have a specific level of IRR. It just needs to be a positive IRR, basically, which is reasonable. Because this is a long-term concessional debt, it's from a development fund, which is the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development. You've mentioned that you've added the cost of carbon credits so far into your economic model, and I think this is where your question and other applicants' questions on a sample feasibility study may help you in this regard. Oh yes, also you have a follow-on question. Can you confirm if the project is completely debt financed or there's no equity IRR? That's up to you as to how you would like to structure the project. So there are some projects that have been submitted in which the early preparation part of the project means, for instance, a geothermal project requires drilling, and their equity IRR is used, and then later on the project, when the resource is confirmed, you could structure it that debt is used to set up the power plant part of the activity. So it's really up to you as to how you would like to structure it. There's no specific requirement on that by the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development. And so they're looking at economic feasibility. So Mr. Louis Tiengo, you put your hand up, and if you could go ahead and speak. Hello? We can't hear anything. Okay. Okay, great. We have another question, which is from Mokhtar Abul Atta. I understand you joined the webinar a little bit later. I just wanted to explain again, you're asking if we're referring to another type of funding available beyond the IRENA ADFD project facility. Yes, we have for the Africa region, the IRENA Sustainable Energy Marketplace. You can access it on http://marketplace.irena.org. There you can register your projects, and you do not require a government guarantee to register there. The idea of the platform is to put together projects with those projects that are looking for funding with funding entities and technology providers. So my colleague Alexi is leading that. So we can answer any questions, specific questions on that as well after the webinar as well. Can I see if there are any further ones that we didn't answer? Okay, there's a question from Shurai Kavu asking, can the IRENA ADFD project facility, through it, can a pilot project be funded? Because a full feasibility study is required, and it needs to be a project really which is ready to go. If the pilot project is an experimental project, then it would be difficult for to get through the process because of what the experts are looking at. Is this really fully technically feasible, etc. And also because a full feasibility study is required. Again, I don't want to completely rule out such a situation because, for instance, the Mali project, there were several pilot projects done before they submitted this project for 30 villages. So they proved the economic model, and in that case the business model, and then we're able to expand. So it depends what exactly your pilot project is, but certainly note that full feasibility study is required. Laurence is asking, do we need to see the IRR calculation or other economic model, or do we just need the final values? Just for the sake of transparency for the experts who are looking at this, it's probably useful to provide the full IRR calculation and the model. But at the summary stage, if you want to provide the estimates at this stage and you don't have the full details, you can provide those aspects at the full proposal stage. But again, the distinction with this fourth cycle, which is different from the third cycle, is that we will be providing you the input from the experts. This is something that will also assist you at the second stage as to what is really required in your application and in the feasibility study. So to answer many of the questions posed, there is a distinction here which I was mentioning in the slide here on new aspects. The panel of expert comments in this fourth cycle for the first time will be provided to applicants, and we were able to get this approval internally and from those we're engaging to be able to provide you with this to assist you at the second stage. So I hope we've addressed this as much as possible. I think in terms of providing you with feedback on what needs to be on the feasibility study at the second stage, that aspect will help significantly. It's a new aspect. And if we are able to provide the confidential feasibility study of a previous project proponent, we will. But again, I think the main thing is to focus on what the requirements are in this fourth cycle, because there are some we can provide you with what was provided in the previous cycles, but we also hope for improvements in this fourth cycle as well. I think we've covered all the questions that I can see in the webinar. If I have not, please do contact me directly. My email is slockwood@irena.org. That's provided at the end of the presentation, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. And thank you for so many of you coming from previous cycles to share your experiences. That's Andrea Watson James and others who've come in, and also the new potential applicants. Kareem McGurby, thank you so much for your extensive questions, and for many of the others, we've noted them all down. And what we will also do is provide you with, we're also going to try to send you some survey questions as well after this webinar. We have some project developers online asking us what are the specific weak points on specific projects submitted in specific countries that cause the refusal of the project by the IRE through the selection process. On a general basis, it's normally because there is insufficient information provided for the experts to make the type of judgments that you'll see now up front in this fourth cycle provided to you. We have insufficient information for them to say, is this project actually technically feasible? So try to work backwards from what the experts have to consider. And we also have one additional person who would like to make a question, a verbal question. Trina Carter will give you the floor.
I just wanted to know whether or not the slideshow is going to be emailed to us.
Yes, the slides will be emailed to you immediately after this webinar.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say as well that the others that registered a few days earlier, you should have received the presentation, but we will send you another one as well, because in the one that I've presented, I've also emphasized the government guarantee requirement. So there are just a few updates on the presentation based on input as well. Okay, thank you for all your input. I understand that everything has been answered. If it hasn't, please do contact us afterwards. And also, just whilst we're online, again, I'd like to emphasize, please do go into the website. You'll see in the how to apply what you need. There's the templates for the government or non-government entities to apply. You also have the fourth cycle form that you can upload here. The fourth cycle form, again, I can show to you on the screen. This is the bulk of the application. You'll see it on the screen, which is the project summary, the project objective and structure. This is what you need to be really focusing on up to mid-February, and filling in this part of the application. So it's a summary stage, and here on the right is really how your project's being considered. So that should help you further to articulate what needs to be articulated here in this part of the application. If it doesn't nicely fit into these parts of the Excel sheet, submit your additional documents as additional documents to support your project summary, and add in this Excel file that I have an additional document that has been submitted to help this to help answer this question. Again, the experts will be seeing the input you're providing in these sections, and they will be making their analysis based on these statements they have to consider for each part of this project summary. So this is the main core of what you need to look at, and of course there's some other drop downs and details on the what financing you're looking for up, further up in the summary, executive project summary. And project owner information is also more basic information, but the core is what's really down in this project summary part. That's what the experts will be looking at. Okay. I think there are many questions about how can we develop projects. Can we go forward? There are a couple of very interesting questions. One is, what is needed for a big project to get off the ground and maybe to submit in 2017? Again, thank you, Brent Barber. The thing is, with the work that we're trying to do in IRENA, we're trying to connect all the different areas of what IRENA is doing. And so what you'll see, and I'll show you on the how to apply part of the website, you'll see access to other areas of IRENA's work. So here you have IRENA Project Navigator in the platforms part of the website, not only the sustainable energy part, but also the IRENA Project Navigator. If you click through there, my colleagues in Bonn have set this website up to help to assist projects to really develop further. So this is really for broader questions that are being posed beyond the facility. So if you want to try to set up a PPA agreement, there are even guidance there within the project navigator of how to do that and what steps to take. For instance, if you want to set up a very comprehensive stakeholder consultation process, the project navigator also helps you in that. And then there are other areas of IRENA's work, such as the Global Atlas, which is providing you with further information on resource assessment. So what I'm trying to do with the IRENA ADFD project facility, what we're trying to do with it is to really make sure that all the areas of IRENA's work come together to assist projects to help to develop their projects further. And we'll continue to try to do that. There was a question saying, where can I see the requirement of the participant? That's David Al-Rashid. So the participant needs to, first of all, there's an eligibility aspect in the About the page on the IRENA website, which tells you that projects need to be submitted in member IRENA signatories or states in accession and need to be in the DAC list of ODA recipients. And the participants that can submit to the facility, they can be rural electrification agency coordinators, they could be an energy director in a Ministry of Energy. So the examples that we have from the first and second cycle are directors of rural electrification agencies, energy experts in Ministry of Energy entities, and even ministries of national security who have renewable energy projects. They're representatives from there who are putting forward their respective projects. Also, we have another hand up. It's from Ahmed Raza. If you would like to go ahead.
No, thank you.
Okay. So you don't want to pose a question now. Okay, thank you very much. Or does he? So Ahmed Raza, would you like to pose a question?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then there are also some other questions that we have further down. Oh yes. Okay, great. There's a question from Mokhtar Abul Atta. I think we've helped to answer that earlier, but it's saying, can a project under a feed-in tariff program that has a strong socio-environmental aspect be eligible for ADFD funding? The project would mainly contribute to grid reliability. Yes, for sure, that could be a project that can be submitted, and you've also asked for the presentation to be sent, and we will send it to all those who've registered and are online at the moment. Okay, you know, just on a few final comments, because the webinar will finish in a few minutes' time. We'll close the webinar in about 7 minutes or so. One of the reasons that we wanted to set this webinar up is to really have an idea of the different stakeholders involved. We have various entities who've submitted in previous cycles. They're private sector. There's also funds who've registered to come onto this website, and also some national agencies and ministries. So thank you for your participation. We have these particular requirements in the facility, but if there's any requests for technical assistance, co-funding, etc., please do also contact us. IRENA is a facilitator in the process. At this point, the pledge that we have on the table is from the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development, which is this 350 million for 7 cycles and 50 million for each cycle. What we're trying to do is get other actors on board as well, because we know that through this process, and that's why some applicants have asked us how come they haven't been selected. Much of the reason is because of the government guarantee requirement, but also constraint that only a maximum of 10 projects can be selected per cycle, and we have over 100 applications each year. But again, we try to assist project proponents coming through, and we wish you all the best in trying to prepare the application, the Excel form. Please also flag to us when you are submitting your Excel form if you have any challenges with uploading. It is a new form. We do have a new system in the 4th cycle. We've done this so that we can work together with our partners within IRENA, our colleagues within IRENA, to make sure that our programs are merged a bit more. But if there are any challenges with that, please do flag it to us immediately. We have a question from Maxwell Shimba. If you would like to go ahead, please.
Yes, just a quick question. My name is Max Oshimba, CEO of UAGS LLC, Upstate New York. I just want to see if you guys in the future will be involved in South Sudan in funding, or you have any other institution that are willing to fund South Sudan.
I think if you could just hold on 1 second, I'm just trying to check our respective lists. So what I'd say at this point is that what we do have is linkages with, I'm interacting with other funds which are in the Arab region, and they work in the Arab Coordination Group. Now, I'm just thinking that one or other of them may actually cover South Sudan, but I need to double check.
Thank you.
And I'll get back to you. And I mean, that whole list includes, the Kuwait Fund, the Badea, which covers sub-Saharan Africa, and we also have the Islamic Development Bank, which has 56 member countries. So I'm just going to have a quick look at amongst their 9 main funds there, including Abu Dhabi Fund for Development, which makes it 10. Sure. Sorry, excuse me. So yes, we just had a little bit of technical difficulty here, so excuse me. But we will get back to you. Thank you so much for your question.
Thank you.
Okay, there's a question from Shorai Kavu saying, is the government guarantee required on the initial project proposal submission? So what you're talking about is the executive project summary proposal. I would understand from your question. Certainly you need to make sure that you're able to provide the government guarantee at the executive project summary stage, but you don't need to provide it to us at the executive project summary stage. We say to provide it as soon as possible because we know it takes some time to obtain it. And as I mentioned earlier on in the webinar, by August of each year, so in this case it would be August 2016, if you're able to provide it by then, that would be fine, but of course that's, if you've been shortlisted by that stage. But again, please make sure that you can provide it and that you're also, in effect, not wasting your own time at the second stage, because at the second stage we're going to be asking you for a lot more than at the summary stage. At the summary stage we're asking you for your technical plans, your economic plans. At the second stage we're asking you for a full economic feasibility study, and in many cases that means that you'll be incurring costs at that stage. Okay, thank you so much. We're coming up to 6:30 here in Abu Dhabi, and that's an hour and a half of the webinar. We'll try to put this recording up as soon as we can, and we'll send you the presentation as well. And if there are any other outstanding questions, please do email me. My direct email address is there. Thank you very much.